So, hello, Kristen, and hello, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast brought to you by MarTech Edge, the video podcast where we bring you the latest trends and insights in marketing and technology. And to share her journey, we have Kristen Habacht as Chief Revenue Officer at Typeform. Typeform is a refreshingly different form builder that helps you collect zero party data while providing a stellar brand experience. So, Kristen, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Thank you so much. So, to begin with, let's understand your career journey. And with nearly 2 decades of experiencing in growing and scaling revenue organization, can you share some of the key lessons you've learned throughout your career?
Right. So I'm Chief Revenue Officer now at Typeform. I began my career as an office manager and kind of stumbled into sales. And it ended up being the perfect fit for me because I loved talking to people and I wanted every day to be a little bit different. And I came from a theater background. And so I felt like it kind of leveraged a lot of my improv skills to have to do customer calls and sales pitches. And so I've been in tech sales ever since. I was at Trello as their first revenue hire. Then we were acquired by Atlassian. I built out teams there. And then I was at a company called Shogun. And now I'm at Typeform. And yeah, all along the way, I think the common themes for me have been around really customer centricity and listening to what your customers are asking for. It sounds easy enough, but it's actually a really hard skill to not want to just tell people what they want and tell them what they need, but actually be listening. And also to just realize that, the lessons you learned before and the things that worked for you before are not necessarily what's going to work. The world changes super fast. And I think a lot of people in tech found that out recently. You can be going along one way thinking that's the way the world's going to be measured, and suddenly everything changes around you. So yeah, just you can never get complacent. And even those lessons learned.
So, that's really commendable, your journey from sales to CRO. So, of course, building a strong team, as you said, you really like building teams and having good conversations. So, how being a data-driven are essential for an organization's success. So, speaking of data-driven approaches, can you explain that? What inspired you to adopt data-driven approach to understanding your ideal ICP, ideal customer profile?
Yeah. I think as long as I can remember sales, I've always felt like, and in marketing as well, there was always this lack of, it's really important to have the instinct of what's going on, but it's also important to have the data that supports it, right? And I think a lot about sales and marketing as like baking, which is there is a science to it. You can't just, when you cook, you can kind of throw stuff together, but when you bake, you can't, right? You got to have to really understand like the elements that are going in together. But even if you do all of that, and then of course, you burn it in the oven, or you don't know how to decorate the cupcakes or whatever it is, you still kind of fall apart. And so there's that art and there's that science, and the two things have to come together. And that's how I think about the data-driven approach, which is you should be listening to your customers, you should be listening to the market, you should be tracking these things, but you should also always be combining that with the data insights and checking your hypothesis, very much like scientific method, right? Like I think a thing, what can I use to validate that or disprove it as well, which is also, by the way, equally as important. And so one of the things that in my journey brought me to Typeform in part was because Typeform as a product allows you to ask those questions to get those insights from people. And so for me, it was the perfect combination of a tool that also kind of followed the vision of what I wanted to be building out as I built out my teams. And so I think combining those two pieces, the art and the science, that's when the real magic in sales and marketing takes place, right? You want to balance that creativity, that improv, that all of those things with still knowing, right? Like, all right, I'm talking to the right person. I know this is the right person. And once you have that piece, what you say to them, that's the art of it all in a lot of ways. But as long as you know who you're talking to, you should be able to know, I'm going to win this deal, or I'm going to have a good shot at this, or I'm going to get this conversion, whatever it might be.
I really like how you correlated baking to the data. So speaking of team alignment, Kristen, how has aligning your team around a product-led growth motion impacted your overall efficiency?
Yeah. I think that I've kind of ended up specializing my career in product-led growth, and I stumbled into it by accident, basically, when I was at a company called Fog Creek, which was the precursor to Trello, and it was founded by engineers who very much were trying to do the same thing Atlassian and a number of other people ended up doing, which was to say, if I build a great tool, I won't need salespeople to sell it for me. And I kind of started my career accidentally in PLG and before it had a name. And what I did love about it always was that there was this sense of, again, coming back to customer centricity, which is you're doing the right thing for the customer. And what that means is that sometimes they need to talk to some people, but sometimes they don't. And you shouldn't force these moments to happen because you want to put up an artificial paywall or you want to give credit to a salesperson instead of it being a self-serve motion. So when I think about aligning around PLG and thinking about company and team initiatives, as long as we all come from that starting point of, as long as the company is winning, the teams are winning then, and not creating these artificial spots where you have to show a team won't get credit unless they close that deal. Even if I can show you I talked to that person 3 times and then they went and bought and self-served, well, you won't get commission for that because, you know, all those things are artificial constraints we put in because we're trying to prove the value of what our groups are doing. So I found that as long as we sort of rally around those big picture initiatives, as long as we rally around that one team, one goal, you know, we talk about kind of one funnel here. And as long as the teams are not penalized for embracing that, people want to do what's right for customers generally. That is the first instinct they have. It only starts to get out of alignment with then if the way that they're compensated or the way that they're promoted or the way that they're whatever is misaligned with that piece.
Of course, it's great that how product-led growth can enhance team alignment and overall efficiency. So let us delve more into the specific strategy that unifies your team. So can you shed some more light, as you just mentioned, about one funnel approach? Can you describe one funnel approach in detail and how it unifies your go-to-market team tools and data?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that we talk about one funnel is if you think about traditionally the way that go-to-market and product think about funnels is they're usually isolated from one another. So product might own retention metrics or activation metrics, and sales is owning enterprise revenue and MQLs and PQL conversions. Marketing is owning some top of funnel, maybe sign up metric and, you know, MQL metric potentially. And a lot of times we think about, well, as long as I hit my MQL goal, then I've been successful, even if those MQLs aren't converting. As long as I've hit my retention goal, I'm successful, even if nobody is expanding. You know, there's all these pieces where because we look at these as individual funnels for our team metrics, we sometimes miss the bigger picture. So at Typeform, we're creating an environment where product, sales, marketing, customer success, support. We're looking at the customer journey holistically. And honestly, even the term funnel is a little probably of a misnomer because it's more of like a circle because it never quite stops happening, right? It feeds itself. But if you think about it from that funnel lens, that means that we're looking at how every one of those decisions is impacting the other parts of the funnel, even if that is traditionally a product metric, or even if that is traditionally a sales team metric, we're all working towards it together. So that means obviously that there's very tight alignment between product, go to market, pricing and packaging. All of those pieces are tied together, working towards one goal. And more importantly, we're looking at the customer through one lens as much as we possibly can, which means smaller tech stacks that are more intrinsically connected with one another, making sure we don't lose track of the customer's insights just because, well, they MQL'd and so now they're leaving this tool and they're going into Salesforce. And as long as they convert, then they'll stay only in Salesforce and we won't see any information anywhere else. And so looking at that whole customer perspective like that, and then also making sure that there's ownership, shared ownership in those goals between all of those teams as well. So it's not like, well, I hit my thing and you didn't hit yours. So whatever, it sounds like it's a you problem. So I think it's really is pervasive in everything that we do from a go-to-market perspective. And then in turn, it's also how we work with our customers, right? Typeform is a tool that allows us to ask these questions of our customers. Why are you here? What brought you here? What's interesting to you? But then also, like, once you're a customer, what features are you using the most? What would you like to see? So that idea of asking people, again, is like can exist at every part of the funnel. It's not like it's just a marketing function or just a support function.
Interesting. It's like an holistic approach going to things. So as a leader in this industry, how do you cultivate the culture of innovation and continuous improvement within your organization, and what impacts does this culture have on an overall business strategy?
Yeah. So I think most people ultimately want to do a good job at work, and they want to innovate, and they want to improve, right? Very few, I mean, there are some, I'm sure, but very few people are like, I just want to do the exact same thing every single day. But what holds people back in those moments is fear, right? Like, I know this thing works, and am someone who wants the business to do well. And I'm scared that if we stop doing this thing and we try this other thing, what if? What if it's worse? What if it's a waste of time? And it's when we get into those moments of kind of questioning that and getting stuck in that we do stop the innovation. And it always comes from a generally positive place, which is, like I said, people want to do well. And so I think, one, you have to celebrate lessons learned, even if there are failures, right? Because like I said before, even if in the scientific method you disprove something, that's still a win. You understand what experiment not to run again. And that's innovation in and of itself, right? And so I think it's a little bit of that framing of like, you don't have to just win, have it be innovation. You don't have to always be right. It's okay to be wrong sometimes, as long as you learn something from it. And so giving people that freedom and that safety net of like, you're not going to get on a pip because you tried something and it didn't work, right? As long as you tried it the right way and we worked through what the original assumptions were, as long as all of that is sound, no one's getting in trouble today for that kind of change. So I think one is that. And then I think two is, again, like arming people with as much as we can to give them those insights to make the hypotheses, but not so much that it becomes, analysis from paralysis, where you're like, well, I'm not perfectly accurate on my assumptions. I need this, I need that. So I think a little bit of, again, it's like in art and science, a little bit of it is, giving people that safety net to experiment, giving people enough insights, giving them that direction. But, and again, like, and asking generally where it's coming from. Are we doing this because it's customer centric? It's something our customers need. We know that they need it. We know that they want it. It would make their life easier, would make their life better, whatever it is. Are we doing this because it's a pure business function and we know it's not from a customer centric perspective? And an example of that would be, you used to be able to buy this thing, but now you can't without talking to somebody whose life is getting made better because of that. So framing all those things, I think, start to create it. And then finally, the big one is, once you start it, you have to be a hype man for it. Like, we're glad this team tried this. We're excited. Here are the good things that came out of it. Here are the learnings that came out of it, because people also want that positive reinforcement in a public setting. And when people see that happening for their peers, they'll think on their own world, like, oh, in my universe over here, what could I be doing that's like that? And it starts to kind of snowball from there.
You're correct, Kristen. So one should not fear failing, but one should fear that they're failing and not learning out of it. So, of course, so speaking of evolution of the GTM strategy, I mean, how do you anticipate the evolution of GTM strategy in the coming years? What would you like to share on this note?
Oh man, if I could figure this one out, this is my lottery ticket. Every time I think I've got it figured out, the world moves in weird ways. I mean, for example, I would say we're all like, the future's going to be cookieless. Google's getting rid of cookies, and then Google's like, just kidding. Cookies are here forever, guys. So, but I think that maybe that's the lesson, right? Which is like, I think the answer is GTM's just never done to some extent, and you never know. I think that what we're seeing right now that I think is going to remain over the next several years is people are knowing their experience, what it's like to buy in a consumer universe, meaning like, I don't know about you, but like, I do almost everything that I buy anymore online is because I saw somebody on TikTok or Instagram, using it or pitching it or whatever. And it's become this real, like, very influencer heavy, but also very personalized. Like, the algorithm feeds you things that it knows about you, and you're more likely to buy. And I think people are seeing these experiences. They're engaging with video. They're engaging with influencers. They're engaging with other pieces like that. And we're all buyers in a consumer world, and then we're buyers in our business world too. And we're bringing more of that over. We don't want to necessarily just like go to a webinar. We want to know people that I admire in B2B world. What did they do to make their business work? I mean, just like this podcast, right? Like I want to hear from people who know how to do this. What are their secrets? And I think that's a big part of where the market is moving. I think people want video. They want to see things. They want to connect like humans. I think remote's been amazing, but I think it's actually made people crave human connection, even if it's digital, even more. They want to buy things that have a purpose. So I think those are all shifts we're going to see in go to market. And I think sales, marketing, product, everybody who's part of that is going to have to start incorporating a little bit more of those consumer-ish self-education, which is very PLG, elements into their world.
Interesting. So finally, covering around the AI buzz. So how has incorporating the AI strategies transformed your marketing efforts at Typeform? And what specific AI tools or techniques have proven most effective?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I got a slightly spicy take on AI, which is like, I don't love AI. I think AI is really great for doing all the things that people are really not so great at. So meaning like synthesizing large amounts of data. So understanding who your ICP is by leveraging data, asking those questions. Typeform, I think you can ask like free form questions, then leveraging AI to pull out insights like that. I think that's great because you wading through hundreds or thousands of people's personalized responses, not a thing humans are amazing at. Like that is a hard thing to do. But when I think about, especially in go to market, like creative content, and I've heard a lot of people talk about, well, AI is good for a starting off block, but I kind of think like even that you probably get maybe slightly less creative ideas that come from it, even if it is a good starting off block. So I don't love AI for, sales conversations or SDR emails or, that kind of stuff. Like I still am kind of let humans do the thing that humans are best at, which is making those connections. But I do think for going back to data being data driven, I do think AI is allowing us to be a lot more data driven than a lot of folks could be before, because you used to have big data teams to synthesize and provide these insights. You'd have to have data engineering and data analysts, and you still need those folks, but I can also pull up and ask a question after I run a survey now and just get answers without having to ask one of my engineers to take time to build me that, those insights. So I think that's the super interesting spot that AI is going into that I think will help marketers, will help salespeople personally, but I still kind of leave the conversations to the humans ultimately.
I agree with you, Kristen. Now, however strong Gen AI gets, I mean, the human intervention in every process is really essential. So, wow, Kristen, I really loved your energy and your lot of learning that I have for me right now. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. And it's been fascinating discussion. And to our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you find this discussion as enlightening as I did. So stay tuned for more episodes where we try to bring you all the latest trends and technology and innovation. Until next time, signing off, your host, Bhakti.